Hi everyone, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. This is my July wrap up. As you may know, I have been in a massive reading slump for the past couple of months, but July was significantly better than June was. I read so many more books, I enjoyed myself a lot more, and it didn't feel like I was kind of having to power through or try to catch up with what I was reading or my reading plans. I had a really good time in July and I'm really looking forward to talking about the books with you. First things first, excuse my appearance, I have just finished work and I really need to get this video recorded, edited and uploaded in the next couple of days so that I can kind of try to get back on schedule, because I haven't really been posting to my usual schedule on YouTube. I've gone down from 3 or 4 videos a week to just 1, so I'm really not happy with that. I want to get back into a routine, so I'm having to record after work, which is why I look a bit tired. The bags under my eyes are very dark and my eyes are looking a bit red. I'm okay, I'm doing all right. Saying that, I just had to change the angle because of course things are going wrong already. Is that better? Anyway, without further ado, let's just sort out talking about books because I need to hurry up. This is the wrap up. I started off the month by reading Dream On by Angie Hockman. I read Shipped by Angie last year. I'm saying Angie as though I'm good friends with the author. I've never spoken to her before in my life. So she writes romance books. Dream On is her newest release. It came out in July, I believe, and it's a book about a woman who was studying for her law degree and she gets into a driving accident and loses her memory. But while she is in a coma, she actually dreams of this guy who she believes to be her boyfriend, but when she wakes up from the coma, her family and friends tell her that this guy doesn't actually exist. They don't know what she's talking about. She doesn't actually have a boyfriend. So she wakes up and is very confused and wants to know what's going on. So some time passes and she has to go through her law internship again, which she actually did the previous summer, and she was offered a job, but obviously because of the accident she had to turn it down. So she goes into the same firm and gets a summer job there, and then she sees the guy literally of her dreams. The two start to get to know one another. I really enjoyed this one. It was a really good mixture between contemporary romance and a good mystery as well. I loved trying to figure out how the two of them knew each other because it was such an interesting concept to me. And honestly, this is called Dream On, but it sounded like a bit of a nightmare to me. I would hate to be in this situation. It was actually awful. The main character goes through a lot of character growth. She is trying to decide kind of who she is because she feels like her life is sort of stagnated over the past year, and watching her kind of realize what it was she wanted to do with her life, sorry about the dog, and what was the correct path for her was really interesting. And also the romance was so good. I really enjoyed it. It was kind of like, actually no, I'm not going to say anything more about the romance just in case I give something away, but I very much enjoyed the romance in this romance book, which is always good. After that, I was definitely in the romance mood, so I tried to give It Happened One Summer Ago and I didn't like this. I gave this one 3 stars at the time, but looking back it's probably more of a 2.5. I've just found it very boring. This one is more of a steamy romance than Dream On was, which I gave 4 stars by the way. That was very much contemporary romance and this is steamy, smutty romance. I mean, it tries to be smutty, but I didn't really love the smut. This is about a main character called Piper who is very rich, and she messes up big time, and her stepdad sends her back to this dreary Washington town that her mother grew up in. Piper is there to sort of sort her life out, become a better person, and she meets a fisherman guy and the two of them fall for each other immediately and start to get it on. I really didn't like the romance in this one. I found him to be very boring. Piper was quite funny and amusing at times. I liked the idea of her character growth. I just don't think it was executed as well as it could have been. But he, whatever his name was, Brendan, of course his name is Brendan, was very dull and I didn't connect with him at all, and I didn't like their romance scenes either. I just didn't get anything out of them, so didn't love the book. I'm gonna change my rating to 2.5 stars. I then read The River at Night, which is a adventure thriller, I would say. In this one, a group of best friends, they're all adults, they come together every summer to just chat and catch up on how they've been doing, continue to bond and build on their friendship. One of them is basically the leader of the group. She's the one who's always initiating these holidays that they go on. The women, I think there are 4 of them, all go up to Maine into the wilderness with a kind of dodgy whitewater rafting company. They're taken into the wilderness, not really given any real training on whitewater rafting, and so everything goes wrong almost immediately. The issues that the girls are having, or the women are having with each other and their relationship, the cracks start to show. There are some twists and turns in this. It's not the most sort of mysterious thriller. I didn't think. I saw a lot of things coming, but I really enjoyed the adventure aspect and how gripping the plot was. I've ordered this author's second book, which is, I think it's called Into the Jungle, and it has a very similar concept, and I have realized that this is like my favorite genre at the moment anyway. If anyone was to ask me like right now now, I would say adventure thrillers where people are stuck in the wilderness and have to try to survive, like adventure, survival, thrillery goodness. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 3.5 stars, so not quite a 4, but I think her second or third book maybe a 4-star for me, because, or above of course, because it's obviously her debut, so some things had to be sort of ironed out, I think, and she could have done with some practice, but I really enjoyed this one and I would recommend it. Then I had a day off work and I had been meaning to read this book for ages because I needed to recap it for Recap Tins. It's quite an old one, and that is Tempest by Julie Cross. I read this back in 2011, I want to say, so 10-11 years ago. Back in the day I gave it 5 stars and now I've given it 4, although I'm not going to change my rating on Goodreads because back then I definitely was the target audience and now I'm not really. So this is a YA sci-fi book. The guy in it, whose name is Jackson, he can time travel and he hasn't told his girlfriend, and he's sort of still trying to figure out what the conditions of time travel are and how far he can push it, how far he can go back, and what exactly like the scientific elements of it are. He has told his best friend, which is good I suppose because he's a sciencey guy and he can help him, but yeah, he hasn't told his girlfriend, who's called Holly. And then one day these secret agents come for him and kill Holly, and he gets thrown back well into the past, which hasn't happened to him before. He's trying to figure out how to get back to his present day to potentially stop Holly from dying in the first place, and also he gets to know Holly in the past, and he also like reconnects with various family members and stuff. I did really enjoy this one. It was very fast paced. I read it in less than a day. I'm looking forward to rereading the sequel as well. I did recap this one for Recap Tin, so I'm going to recap the sequel as well, and then I'm finally going to read the third book, which I have left unread on my shelf for about 10 years, so now is the time I'm going to do it. I'm probably not going to read Vortex, the sequel, in August because I've got so many other things going on, but I might get to it in September, or if I'm in the mood in August I will pick it up because it's a fun sci-fi adventure. I then read Pale Rider. This is a non-fiction book. I also listened to it as an audiobook. I gave this one 3.5 stars. It's about the Spanish flu, so it goes into the history of the Spanish flu, where it may have started and how it affected various nations across the world. I really liked that aspect of it. Obviously I'd heard of the Spanish flu before, but I didn't really know much about it, how it affected places outside of probably New York and the UK. I didn't even really know how it affected other states. In this one, the author goes into detail about how it affects India, I remember, and also Brazil and Argentina in particular. I remember those chapters. I listened to this as an audiobook, which I did enjoy, but I think what I want to do is reread it at some point in the near future as a physical book and go through and highlight and make some notes, because this is a really good one I think to study. This book in particular doesn't have the best reviews on Goodreads. A lot of people had some criticisms with it. To be honest, for my purposes, I just want a quick introduction to the Spanish flu and how it affected various nations, so then I can look into the history more if I want to. This gives me a really good overview. There's also a little bit at the end that talks about how to deal with the next pandemic and theories on what that might be, and this was written pre-COVID-19, so be aware of that. If you don't really want to go into the theories of what could have been and how we could have prevented it, then yeah, I wouldn't pick up this book, but it was very interesting. I then read an audiobook called Trial by Fire because it was included in my audio membership. This one is the non-fiction account of the Station House fire, which happened in Rhode Island in 2002, I think, 2001. Basically, it was a nightclub fire. The fire started because the band there set off pyrotechnics on the stage and everything immediately went up in flames. And when I say immediately, the fire was raging and had taken over the entire building in 90 seconds. It was absolutely horrendous. A lot of people died. There were 100 to 101 casualties, depending on how you categorize those. And the author does a really good job of, first of all, focusing on what exactly led up to the fire. He goes into a little bit of detail about the events of the fire, but because it happened over 90 seconds, obviously there's not a huge story to tell there. What's more interesting is how the people reacted to the fire and dealt with it afterwards, and the court cases that followed. I really enjoyed this one. Again, this is one that I want to get as a physical book, and I want to annotate it and make some notes for myself. I was initially interested in this one because I had seen the video of the Station House fire up on YouTube. I would not recommend that you go and watch it because it is traumatic, and I still think about it even though I watched it like 8 years ago. I think about it all the time, especially when I'm in a crowded venue or an enclosed space. I am always watching out for fire exits because that video made me realise that fire safety is so important. It is very tragic though. You see the people on camera who do die tragically from this fire, and it basically records it as it happens because there was a cameraman there that night. So yeah, wouldn't recommend, but it's very good if you want to traumatize someone and teach them about fire safety, because I'm never going to get it. I gave this book 5 stars. I then read Amari and the Great Game, which I got from EW, I believe, from the publisher, so thank you HarperCollins. I actually only gave this one 3 stars, and that's because it felt identical to me to Amari and the Night Brothers, and I didn't really love the plot or the story of this one. I didn't really feel the same character connections as I did in the first one with Amari and her friend, who I won't name for spoilery reasons. I loved reading about their bond in the first book, and this one didn't really have the same kind of vibe to it. I also found that the author kind of jumped from scene to scene, and this might be a middle grade thing. I admittedly don't read much middle grade, but there was nothing really threaded in there to connect each scene. It was just one thing after the other, and I couldn't tell you what sort of time frame this book took place in or how the characters were getting from place to place. It was just all of a sudden they were there. So yeah, I didn't hate the book by any means. I just don't think it's as good as Amari. I gave Amari 4 stars. I'm giving this one 3. I will still read the sequels though if the author writes them, because I do really love Amari, the character, and her relationships with her friends. I'm looking forward to seeing how the series develops. I then read Eve, which has been on my shelf for the longest time. This one also came out, I think, in like 2011. I remember this was one of the first debut books that I wanted to check out for the debut author challenge. This one is another one that's about a virus actually. So the main character is living in a dystopian future. A virus has destroyed the US. It wiped out a lot of the population, and she is in a boarding school where it's all girls, and they are all basically told that guys are terrible and they should fear them, they should stay away from them because they only want one thing. Eve realizes that maybe her teachers have been lying to her and there's more to the outside world, but also they may be using her for really bad things. I don't really know how much to go into because I can't remember what the back says, but basically it's like a dystopian adventure story where the main character is figuring out, she's introduced to like the wider world really, and she's trying to figure out what to do with this new information. It's a really short book. It took me like 2 hours to read, if that. It's very fast paced. I gave this one 3 stars. I liked it. I won't be continuing with the series because I just don't really feel the need to. I can just read the recaps on Recaptains, and I do fear that because there's a slight romance in this book, it will get worse or more in your face in the sequels, and I don't really want to read about that in a dystopian way. But so I have DNF the series, but I did enjoy this one. It was okay. I'm really pleased that I managed to read another old school YA book off my shelf. I will do another summary of old school YA books at some point in the near future. And then finally I read The Last Vanish, which I received from NetGalley, so thank you to the publishers. I gave this one 5 stars. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I read a Megan Miranda book a few years ago actually, when she first released some YA horror thriller books, I think, and I didn't love it. I think I gave it 3 stars at the time, and now I can't remember anything about it, but this book was fantastic. So it's another one of those survival horror thriller books that I said is now my new favorite niche, or genre, subgenre rather. So this is about a town in North Carolina, which is alongside the Appalachian Trail. I don't actually know how to pronounce that, so I'm very sorry, but it's next to this trail, and it's a very popular spot for hikers. The only thing is, a few years ago, like 20 years ago or so, a bunch of hikers went missing, and they were called the something 4. It was a very famous case, and to this day they're still vanished. This isn't real life. I'm making it sound like it's real life. In the book they are still vanished, but the town is known for these people going missing. There's also been some more recent disappearances. A couple of women have gone missing, and then most recently a journalist has gone missing, and the main character is working at an inn in this town. She's kind of a local. She's been there for 10 years, but she didn't grow up in this town, so she's a bit of an outsider. When the journalist goes missing, she starts to get involved in the mystery and discovery of what the heck is happening in this town. I'm going to do a full review on this book because I loved it so much. Obviously I gave it 5 stars. It was so atmospheric, and being a hiker myself, I love being outside and I love hiking trails and being outside in nature. That sounds really pretentious of me, but I really do, and I think that's partly why I connected to this book so much, and with the disappearances of all of these people, because I was imagining myself going on holiday with my partner, going on a hike up a mountain and then just vanishing. So yeah, I really connected it in that regard, and I loved the kind of gloomy setting of the small town and the small town community vibes as well. It was really good. I honestly cannot recommend this book enough to mystery readers. I would say mystery thriller readers. I wouldn't say it's like an all-out mystery, but it's definitely not fast-paced enough to be a thriller. I feel like it's a quiet thriller, but I was intrigued the entire time. Really enjoyed it, and I'd highly recommend it. So that's my entire July wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've read any of these books or you're planning to after watching this video, let me know in the comments down below and we can discuss them. I'm glad that July went a lot better than June did and that my reading is picking up. It's still going really well in August, although I'm having trouble focusing on which books I want to read. I'm in the middle of so many. This is my August TBR, as well as this pile actually, and also some of this pile. So yeah, I do have a lot of books to read in August, but I'm feeling very motivated, and honestly this video has motivated me even more. So I'm gonna go and read now. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll speak to you all in the next one. Bye.